Well, we had another email request come in. This person says, I have a request that might seem strange to you, but I have trouble getting my close values right. I always manage to make the contrast too strong. Can you help? I think I can show you something there that will really solve that problem. Well, it really has to do with your where your eyes are and what your mind's registering when you're picking up the paint to do close value contrast. I see that as a problem often. So I'm going to give you a couple of clues here. I think with a little practice you'll find it becomes much easier than you think. So I'm going to just use two colors here, not in particular reason except that I want a darkest dark and a lightest light. So this is ultramarine blue, very easy to work with. And so that's why I just chose it here for this little technical demonstration. And of course, this is my white, titanium white. Now, when you're doing gradations, well, let's see what she says. It's not a gradation, it's value contrast. Okay, difference between a contrast and a gradation. All right, first of all, contrast simply means two things are different. Two or more things are different. But in painting, it means usually two things are different. Now, a contrast can be strong or it can be close. A lot of people want to say similarities and contrast. I think that's confusing because if it's different, it is contrast. And contrast can be very, very close, or you might, some people will say a weak contrast, or it can be very, very strong, which should be like the strongest dark to the strongest light. In between the darkest dark and the lightest light, we have increments of value. And this is what the person's talking about. How do you show those differences in the increments of value when you're working on your painting? You see an area that may be dark or light, or in this case, she said light values. She did say, yeah, getting my close values. She didn't say light. Close values, that's what she said. So here's a little thing I'd like for you to try. It starts with what you're doing on the palette, with the way you load your brush on the palette. All right, so first of all, if it's close values, let's do one in the dark range and do another one in the light range and show you. So if you're in the dark range and you have a close value, let's just do something here. First of all, I'm going to pull, I'll just take the palette knife and do this because I usually like to have a little bit of an edge here on the palette before I start picking the paint up. Whoops, I got the paint in the white. I didn't mean to. What would I say, error that people will make when they're painting is when they're loading their brush with paint, they just dump the brush in the center of the paint. And that's the first error because then you don't have control over the amount of paint you put in the brush. So it starts with the amount of paint you put in the brush. So if I want to make a color darker, if I'm going to be working in a dark range on the dark side, say from middle value to the darkest dark, then it works better if I put a little white into the dark at a time. In other words, don't just grab one of this and one of this and mix them together, but let's control it. So I will start out and I'll put it right at the edge. I always go right to the edge, right from the edge of the paint. I move up into the paint as far as I need to go to pull down the amount of paint I want. And I always load both sides of the brush. All right. Now, if I want a dark value, then I'm going to pull out more dark paint. Working light into dark, when you're working a dark value, will enable you to control better the value of the dark you get. And so let's just get this in the dark range. And now see what I'm doing here? I've got this value, suppose I want it a little darker, what I do is I watch what value I'm getting and then move the brush very slightly into the dark paint and then pull it into that. Give it a few strokes to blend it. I usually will go crisscross, like back and forth like that. You see a few more strokes, and I'll keep reaching into that dark a little bit at a time until I get the value I want. And let's assume this is a value, and I'll be sure that I have that same value on both sides of the brush. Now, if it's a large area of value I want, then I want a large amount of paint. So you see what I have on the brush there, and then let's just put this down here. Let's just do it like this. There's little bends here for you to see. All right, now I want a very narrow, very close value contrast. Do I want to get it closely? I want to get it darker or lighter. Let's do it both ways. All right, if I need to get a value contrast in my painting with two values side by side, and I start with that value, and I want the next stroke to be a little darker. That means a close value contrast. Well, then what I'll do here is just have the same paint in my brush, and I just pull a little bit at a time, and I watch right here, have my focus right there. Watch as I pull that paint in to see how much darker it's getting. Here's where you can control that contrast and do it on both sides of the brush. And then, to be sure, I'll compare. Does that seem darker? Maybe I could take it just a little bit darker. And so we'll do that. And sometimes you hit it the first time, and sometimes you don't. The thing, your stuff is right here that's going to cause that to happen. So this is where you look, and you zoom into it. Just zoom into it. Total focus on how dark it's getting, and nothing else. Nothing else. And be sure and load that on both sides. I think that probably is. So let's put this beside. You see there? There we have a close value contrast. Let's move that right on up. You can see it. That's a close value contrast that goes darker. All right, suppose we want a close value contrast that would go lighter. And we do the same sort of thing. It's the same thing. The only thing that's different is how much you pick up. Not necessary to wash your brush. Just wipe off the paint that you already have on the brush. Then move into your light. And we want it to be a close value contrast that's going lighter on this side. And so you move into your light. I always like to pull it on both sides of the brush. And then we begin to pull it in. Now you see how that changes. But if we pull it into just what we already have on the palette there, it mixes very quickly. And turn the brush over and mix it on both sides. And then here's another step that people will often miss. Compare it. Compare it. Is that a close value? It's a little bit too much of a contrast for a close value contrast that goes lighter. So I'll just pull a little bit more. And I think that's where people get in trouble, getting their contrast too strong when there's a close value contrast in your reference. So just go very easy here. You don't have to rush. Go very easy and get it just a step darker. And let's see now. Let's see if we got it there. There we go. That one, there we go. That's it. Right there. That's a close value contrast. So we have the close value contrast in the dark range that goes from the dark to lighter. And we have another one that goes from here to darker. And it's all about how you control it here. And you'll do the exact same thing in the light side, on the light side. So let's do one of those and let you see it happen. And then perhaps you can try it. Now there's one thing you need to consider, always consider, and that is the tinting strength of the color, of the darker color, or both colors in fact. But if you're using white to lighten with, you don't have to worry about that too much. The tinting strength means how strong this color is out of the tube, how much of that is it going to take to make a change in the value. Ultramarine blue is it's normal, almost weak tinting strength. So it will take more ultramarine blue to change the value when you mix white into it than it does, say, for a color like transparent oxide red. Now, the transparent oxide red is a very dark, transparent red-orange, desaturated, relatively desaturated. As it comes out of the tube, it has a very high tinting strength. So it takes more of it. So you pay attention to the tinting strength. It's always good to know what your tinting strength is of every single color you use so that you have then better control. You will know, well, I don't need quite as much of the transparent oxide red to get that value as I need of the ultramarine blue. So that's one thing. Okay, let's go into the light, and now I'm going to move over to the light side. Now, here's the deal. Beyond middle value, if you want to get your value lighter, if you're working on the light side, it's best to put dark into light. So we'll do this time is we'll go pick up a little dark, and we're going to start out with a value maybe a little bit lighter than the middle value. Then we'll pull dark into light, and you see that makes it much easier. If you pull the dark into light, you see how quickly that turned light? So it makes it much easier to get the correct value if you practice that. Darken the light when you want it, when you're working on the light side, not just when you want it lighter. But when you're working on the light side of the value scale, or from middle value to light, if that's the value you're mixing, mix dark into light. If you're mixing a dark color, then mix light into dark. So just keep that little formula. I hate formulas, but that's a good one to remember in mind. And it will always be a lot easier. All right, so that's very, very light. Now I'm going to grab quite a bit of, this is ultramarine blue, as I said, and its tinting strength is on the shy side. And so there we go. Now you see I just stroke it once. That I pulled up enough that time that there we go. There we go. As I pull it in, you see, watch it. You get your attention right here, and all you're paying attention to is how it's changing the value. I like my middle value palette here because I can always change or change my values, or control my values, I should say, by comparing what I have here against the palette. So that is just a little bit lighter than a middle value. It's a good one to do this little demo with. So I'm going to put it over here. Now we'll start right here. There is a lighter value. Now I want it just an increment lighter, about the same increment that I have here, but I want it lighter on the light side. So what I'll do is stay right in here, stay away from this, just pull more light into this, and gradually smooth the brush to gradually into that edge, and there's the edge of paint there, and watch it as it comes down. And then as you stroke it, watch how the value is changing. And if you keep your eye on it, and again, using both sides of the brush, get it mixed enough so that you can tell, then compare. And I believe that might be an increment lighter. Let's see. Yeah, that is a half an increment lighter. And let's get just a little bit more there. And I think it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to play a little game with yourself, where you can go in at half increments to get control of this stuff. But I'm gradually pulling that light in. And then compare. All right, let's see what we have. There we go. So you can see now, you can see this one. There's an increment lighter. This is half increment lighter. And it's just by vision. So if you want to go an increment but darker, you would do the same thing. You reach over for just a little bit more of the dark. It's still dark in the light if it's on the light side, if it's in light, or on the light side of the value scale. So let's just pull a little bit of that in. And when you do that, let your eyes register how the value has changed. A little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. Just want it an increment darker this time. Let's see. That may not be quite enough. And you will notice, or what I've noticed, maybe it's not the same for all people, but when you're you're changing, you're getting close value contrast in your lights. It's a little bit trickier to control. It's easier to control in the darks, but it's a little bit trickier in control. And that's the reason a lot of people will jump from a from a middle value to a real light, because it is so tricky to control. So if you just, there we go, that would be what I'm looking for right there. And let's see here. Changing it right here. See, that went darker. There's an increment darker, and this was an increment lighter than that. So that's a practice exercise, and it's not the kind of exercise you wait to do in while you're painting. It's the kind of exercise you do somewhere else. Get some strip pieces of canvas, or and it works in all mediums, not just oil. It works the same in acrylic. It works the same in gouache, not in watercolor. Watercolor is always a little different. But if you do that practice exercise, your attention is on the mixes here. Watch what's happening to the value as you're mixing, and you'll be surprised what a change it will make in your ability to get close value contrast. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.